There's a great Rwandese proverb that says, if you're building a house and a nail breaks, do you stop building or do you change the nail? And if I look at our journey into Africa, I think it often has been nail biting, and it has been a real experience for us as a business going across outside the borders of South Africa. And what we have made sure that we can do and need to do is to be nimble and be able to change at short notice and be able to change those nails without even thinking of what you're doing. And whilst sometimes it is a nail-biting experience, I think the one thing that is true is that we need to keep focused that real estate is a long-term investment, it's a long-term journey, it's not a short-term fix for anyone. And whilst we continually remind our teams that this is a long-term journey, we need to be mindful of not getting into the narrative that we often hear in the press that the real estate sector, the investment sector is a doldrums. There's extreme negativity at the moment going around, and we do understand that it is a difficult market in many, many countries, but we need to keep focused on the long-term vision, and that's the build-out of the real estate industry across Sub-Saharan Africa. Because we've all heard the headlines of Africa burning, Africa rising, and at Broll we believe that it's the time of Africa interesting because it is a time of opportunity. It is a time where not only occupiers of space, but investors of space have entered into the market. And when I thought, what do I say to you this morning? I have got an absolute dose of realism because we do understand the challenges and the obstacles in the way of developing in Africa. But I thought maybe it's good if we take a step back and just have a look at the real estate cycle. Because what's happening in the real estate market at the moment is nothing unique to any international market, and I'm sure you all know the typical real estate cycle would start with the recovery phase, an expansion phase, an oversupply phase, and finally a recession phase. And I think we all, right at the end of the cycle in the recession phase, and often we become negative and we think, where's this market going to? And I thought maybe it would be good for us to share our journey in Africa, and I'm trying to contextualize what we've experienced over the last 15 years in this journey and tell you where I think we are in the cycle and hopefully the way forward. So 2005 and 2009, if we go back to that time in Nigeria, for example, or Ghana, there was no formal real estate, there were no real formal retail developments or office developments, and at that time you had private equity players and investors entering into this market, creating real estate, building the first shopping centres or first office blocks. And what was quite interesting is the feasibility study rentals versus our achieved rentals. We overachieved in terms of rentals. So in terms of income, there was an overachieving on feasibilities. We had no vacancies to speak of. And in terms of exits, everyone was holding on to their properties and there was no real exit yields that could be spoken of. If you look at 2010 to 2013, we saw the entry of many developers and a lot of stock coming to market, but still limited because the shopping centres or the office blocks or the industrial blocks hadn't really opened for trade at that stage. And we achieved feasibility rentals, vacancies between 2 and 8%. And at the end of the day, there were no real exit yields that we could really benchmark in markets, because if any deal was done, it was really done inter parties and really not in a very transparent manner. And then we get to 2014 to 2018, and I think that's a very interesting phase where we have an oversupply period where a lot of stock is coming to the market, and we, for the first time, started to see the entry of real long-term investors looking at this market and saying, how do I position ourselves as that long-term player that could be ultimately the recipient of all of these buildings that are being built across the continent. And what we've managed to find in this phase of where we were up until 2018, and probably at the end of that phase, is that rentals were not achieved in many instances. So sometimes we had a 20 to 30% discounted rate in rentals, more tenant installations were given, with opening buildings between 60 and 65% let on opening day, and it took 24 to 36 months to build up to a reasonably let situation in many of these properties. And I'm talking more retail and office at the moment. I think industrial is a case on its own. And if you look at exit yields, we're starting to come to market because more transactions had started happening in that space, whereby the long-term investors were taking properties in and were trying to house them for that long-term investment drive. So more transparency came to market in terms of exit yields. 2019 and onwards, and I think that's where we are. Thank goodness it's the last phase of the cycle. This is this, I hate the word recession phase, but it's a phase where we've seen a slowdown of building activity. We've seen a take-up of space, so space has been taken up, although it's at lesser rentals. So we think the rental market has bottomed out, the vacancy market's hopefully bottomed out in most of the cycles. And we are now seeing that the long-term players are actually entering into markets and actually transacting. So exit yields are available. We can understand what's happening in the exit yield place, and I think we're going to see more transactions actually taking place from an investment point of view in the marketplace. But I think the best thing of all, it's the last phase, it's the recession last phase. And after the recession phase is the recovery phase. And I think what we're seeing in a lot of our business units at the moment is a lot of inquiries are coming back into the business to say, is it time to reactivate? What are the opportunities? So we're seeing the green shoots coming back in many of the geographies. And although it might be early days, I think it is hopeful that there is going to be that recovery phase in office and retail. I think you need to also take into account that the sectors that have already started to reactivate, in my opinion, are the hospitality sectors. They are the industrial specialist funds that are coming to market and are in the market. So it's not all doom and gloom. We do have the activators already running in the marketplace, and I think that does give the sector hope. The other thing that we're going to see is I think we believe these long-term investors and well as long-term occupiers, they are really focusing on what we call gateway cities. And gateway cities are where a lot of focus is across the continent, and they are cities where we've got diverse labour forces, where we see investment into infrastructure like roads, airports, power. We see a multitude of companies actually occupying space, whether it's a multinational, whether it's a large regional, in formalised office environments. You've got formalised logistics coming through. You've got hospitality sector that you can actually recognise there's a sector in the market. And you've got formal office. But I think the most important aspect of those cities is that central government is supporting the development of those cities. And you're seeing a lot of that in Accra, in Lagos, in Dar es Salaam, in Casablanca, in Mozambique, in Maputo, in Lusaka. And there are a host of cities that you can name that are actually gateway activated cities. And I think that's where the opportunities do lie at the moment within the traditional space. And we are seeing in the hospitality space other cities are being looked at, but we're also seeing activation of residential, which is also an interesting space to be looking at. And that's encouraging because we're seeing the diverse sector of property activation across all aspects of the property value chain. So today I just wanted to really contextualize where the property industry is, because the more we move around in the market, the more doom and gloom we hear. And I think I would just like to, I thought when they asked me what to say to you this morning, it was more, can we just please put the property sector into context and understand the cycles that property needs to go through and accommodate. And although it might not be easy, I think we're in the recession cycle, moving into the recovery cycle, and it's a question of how long that cycle will be. So I'm going to take you back to the proverb that I started with, and it says, if you're building a house and a nail breaks, do you stop building or do you change the nail? And I think a lot of you sitting in this room today are actually changing those nails, and you're making a difference in the property sector. And I just want to encourage you to continue doing that, because it is a sector that we need to activate, and not just from a real estate point of view, because real estate touches the lives of so many people, and I think it's an activator for many GDPs in countries, growth opportunities, create new job opportunities, and I think we've got to look beyond just the pure real estate effect that our sector has. It's got a domino effect in the entire economies in which we work. So I'd like you to enjoy the conference, and thank you very much.